Welcome to this week's episode of The Authentic Physician, where we have honest conversations about medicine, identity, and health transitions that women are not prepared for. If you're a woman juggling work, caregiving, and a body that no longer responds the way it used to, you're in the right place. And today's conversation is not about perfection, it's about truth. I have with me Dr. Boyer, who is someone I met through a mutual platform exchange and i.e. Facebook. And we are looking forward to having a fun conversation today. But let me start with Dr. Boyer, just jump right in, let you introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Boyer. I am a doctor in private practice in rural Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And I practice integrative medicine and something most people don't know about, but osteopathic manipulative medicine. I've got 4 kids, some that are trying to adult, some that are still home. And we also have a homestead. So we're managing a lot on this side for sure.
I love it. So many questions. So first of all, tell us, what does it mean to be an osteopathic physician versus an allopathic physician?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, it is just an American thing. Worldwide, there aren't DOs. And so DO stands for Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine. And so what that means is we have a unique medical school that we go to. So same training allopathically, 4 years of med school, 4 years of residency, typically depending on what you choose to do. The difference is philosophy. We learn 4 tenets of osteopathy, and I'm probably going to mess up one because, who can remember all these things? But essentially, the body has the ability to heal, that structure and function are related. If something is moving like it should, then it's going to function like it should. And really, that treatment should be based upon those things. And so the other piece that we learn differently besides philosophy is we get our hands on patients. So while we're in med school, we actually put our hands on patients and we learn how to diagnose and treat areas of the body that are not moving. And so a lot of people will ask, is that chiropractic medicine? And it's some of the things we do are similar, but a lot of it, osteopathic physicians have over hundreds of different tools that we can utilize with our hands, different techniques and things like that. So those are the 2 main differences.
That is fascinating. My brother and sister-in-law both went the DO path. I
Okay.
went the MD path, or the allopathic path for our listeners. And it is interesting. I remember some holidays, him bringing home this like huge, it looked like a massage table, right? He's like, here, lay down, I'll fix your hips and whatever. It was fascinating. And that definitely is something we don't learn. I will agree with that. That is something we don't learn. One of the things I find fascinating about what you're doing is that you're still using it, because a lot of the people I know who did go down the DO pathway aren't necessarily using it. They don't own it like I think you do. You fully embraced it. Would you say that that is part of what attracted you to integrative medicine as well? Because a lot of those same philosophies, the holistic care, finding the root cause, that seems to be a lot of overlap there, or am I misunderstanding?
No, there is a lot of overlap. I had one of those light bulb moments. I did my residency in internal medicine and I was going to be either a nephrologist or a critical care doc. And I got one of those divine 2x4s across your head, like,
Uh-huh.
idiot, this is what you're supposed to do with your life. And so there are actually some of us that are board certified in OMM or do a fellowship. So I
Interesting.
did my 3 years of internal medicine residency and then a year after to be board certified in OMM. But
Okay.
what got me into doing integrative medicine was really, I started working with the Amish population here in Lancaster County, and they
Uh-huh.
wanted nothing to do with my prescription pad,
Mm.
nothing. And so I very quickly had to figure out, like, if this was the population that I was going to serve, I needed to figure out, like, how do I navigate through all of these integrative things that they do, right? Like,
Yes.
they can be a very uh, trusting culture. And so if you knocked on their door and told them this cottage cheese was going to fix their cancer, they're
Yes.
likely to buy it. And so I had to figure out really quickly, they did not want my antibiotics. They did not want my medications. And so I had to learn how to serve them well.
Uh-huh.
And that led me down, except besides our own health journey, right? It's
Right.
always what tracks us
Right.
into where we land. But those 2 things are what landed me into integrative medicine.
That's fascinating. And going back just one step, when you said OMM, I think you're talking about the osteopathic manipulative medicine. Is that what
Yeah,
that
so
stands
that
for?
there's two ways that we either call it OMM or OMT, and they're kind of used synonymously.
Okay,
Osteopathic manipulative medicine or osteopathic manipulative treatment.
got it. Okay, just because it's a little less common of a term, I
Yep,
want to make sure I'm
sure.
tracking with you. And so, did you grow up in Pennsylvania? Did you know that you wanted to work with the Amish, or was that something that was dropped in your lap?
I grew up by the Philadelphia airport, so I grew up in Pennsylvania, but I had no idea that I would be working with the Amish.
It's
It's just kind
fascinating.
of one of those things that started.
Yes.
And actually, funny story, I started with my mentor and I was working in his office for about 3 months, 8.5 months pregnant with my third child. And he basically kicked me out after 3 months. So then I was like, okay, that's great. I went out on a limb and did what they told us you couldn't do in med school, start your own practice. Now I'm 8.5 months pregnant and this guy totally kicked me out. What am I going to do? Like,
Wow.
and it was one of those like either biggest opportunities or
Mhm.
biggest obstacles. I chose
Right.
biggest opportunity and I just started doing house calls.
Wow.
So I did house calls with the Amish for about 3.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just kind of landed and I'm still here.
Right, and it's the story you never would have written for yourself, but you're glad you're in it.
For sure.
I love that. And so as you think about all the different opportunities that you've navigated, let's say last 10, 20 years, what do you think what do you think is probably the biggest thing that you have seen and refused to compromise on? So in other words, what of all the things that have happened through Obamacare and all the iterations that have come since, that takes us back to about 2010. You're working with a population that already refuses some of this. Maybe that's not your whole population, but like you've had a decent time span to look at that. What is just not, it's not optional. This is what you're going to do, and this is how you're going to show up in the world.
Yeah, I would say from a physician standpoint, we've never taken insurance.
Mhm.
And so one thing that we've never compromised here with myself and the providers and the coaches that we have is that we are going to meet people where they are. We spend time with our patients. We love them. We make sure that they know that their story is valuable and they're worthy of having their story. And we listen to their story, which is such a huge piece in the medicine world that we miss, right? Like people just want to know that they're heard and that
Yeah.
they're understood.
Mhm.
So that's a spot that we will not compromise on for
Oh,
sure.
I love that. I knew there had to be something, and that's your guiding star part of it. So I love that. Now, to clarify, is your practice only working with the Amish, or do you have other groups you serve?
Yeah, I would say my when I first started, it was 100% Amish.
Okay.
Now we're probably about 70-30. And so
Okay.
it's interesting. The Amish come to me for the hands-on treatment.
Hmm.
And then when it doesn't work, we bridge into integrative medicine. Let's talk about
Okay.
lifestyle. Let's talk about those things. The fascinatingly, the Amish, if you're not Amish to the Amish, you're actually English, which I
Okay.
find absolutely hysterical. So you can be Asian, Black, Norwegian. It doesn't matter. If you're not Amish, you're English.
English. Okay. Interesting.
So, non-Amish patients that come to me are coming for integrative medicine, right?
Mhm.
Because the other things that they've done throughout the medical paradigm have not helped them.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting, kind of two outlets that come into our space here are those two.
Okay. Interesting.
Mhm.
When you think about what people are looking for, I resonate with what you just said, and I see it in my own practice too, is people do want to be heard and they want to know that you listened in a way that was meaningful for their story. Not just you nodded and said, I get it, I've heard this before, right? It's not pattern recognition, it's people recognition.
Mhm.
And when we start doing that, I think across the board as clinically trained individuals, whether we're physicians or different within the scopes, I wonder what's the biggest thing that you could hope would happen by all of us taking that approach? I know it's a magical world, but go there with me for a second. What could happen?
I just wish that family docs could get back to having that space and time to be with their patients, right? Because that's what medicine was,
Right.
right?
Right.
And the challenge is I don't like I mean, I we love seeing patients of all types, but when it really is that the patient is just wants to be feel loved and heard and they're willing to shell out cash for that,
Right.
when really the family doc could be doing that, like that's obviously that's part of my dream, that family medicine would be able to get back to what it used to be, which
Right.
was that doctor-patient relationship. You knew the family, you knew what was going on with dad because they also came to you, right?
Right.
Like it just medicine has torn that piece apart. And I think what we're finding is that that's a really, really crucial part. Like there's so much research that says community is what decreases risk factors for heart attacks,
Right.
right? And when we missed, the family doc was part of that community, right? Like our kids
Yes.
played ball together and you knew each other.
Right.
That, I mean, honestly, that would be my dream for sure.
I love it. That's a great dream. I'm going to turn the tables on us for a second.
Hmm.
Maybe not a second. It might take longer. I'm going to be devil's advocate for
Yeah,
this.
sure.
And I'm going to be a little bit intentionally abrasive here. So
Mhm.
bear with me. What if all of us docs have it wrong and we don't need primary care? What if we just need to do catastrophic care and not do primary care? Because that's part of the debate that we haven't said, but that's actually happening in our culture. We're not investing in primary care. So at some level, someone, even if it's someone's in the systems, have set this up in a way that says we don't value primary care, we don't need it. What if that's true?
Yeah. What if that is true? I don't know how it could be if it's done the way that it used to be, right? And well, and here's the thing, if we think about the way primary care is done now, the reality is we may not need it, right? You can throw in all the urgent cares because the reality is primary care docs aren't necessarily able to care for people the way that they're intended. And so what's our first? Go to urgent care. Go to
Right.
urgent care. Where it used to
Right.
be, come in here, let me see
Yes.
you. Right.
Yes.
And I think that, I mean, to your point, I think the way that it is, maybe we don't.
Mm-hmm. It's just been kind of tickling the back of my brain recently, and I don't know where I saw it, if it was one of our medical apps like Doximity or in a journal, but somewhere I got this idea of, well, what if we don't need? What if it's not true that we need
Sure.
primary care, which is completely foreign to what I do, right? What you do. But even so, like you and I have stepped out of the system intentionally. We've said
Mhm.
we're going to draw the boundaries on insurance instead of insurance drawing it on us, and therefore we've created a new reality. But I don't know, when I had 3,000 patients as an internal medicine doctor, I couldn't have provided the type of what I would consider high quality primary care, even team based care, well, that I can do now. Um, I didn't see it modeled in med school or residency. I saw residency clinics taking care of disadvantaged populations,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I didn't see what we all say we want. And so it begs the question, do we really need what we say we want, or are these just noise signals? So I'm sorting that out for myself and asking uncomfortable questions. So thank you for going there with me.
Yeah, I
into
mean, it's interesting, right? As an osteopathic physician, the primary care that I do is not medical mainstream primary care,
mm,
right? I'm seeing pregnant moms.
mhm,
I'm osteopathically treating pregnant moms. And
mhm.
so I'm in this space where I have a window to speak into their prenatal care. Am I doing their midwifery or OB or any of that? No, but it gives me
Right.
a space to speak into from a
Yes.
lifestyle standpoint. And they bring me all their newborns. I see so many babies for latch and breastfeeding and failure to thrive. And so osteopathy in this true sense
Mhm.
is preventative primary care, because
Yes.
if we can treat someone twice a year and get their bodies moving and they're going to function, that's the true essence, honestly, of preventative care,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
And that I don't think we can live without, but we need to get back to more primary care docs doing that preventative stuff.
Right.
It comes in community, right? It comes in knowing, yes, you're telling me that you're eating appropriately, but I saw you at the McDonald's drive-in,
Right.
right?
When I was there too. So
Right. It's so true.
yes. I like what you're saying though, and I think it resonates deeply with what people, I'm going to say for the sake of argument, lay people,
Hmm.
would be true, right? We all will agree we shouldn't be doing the bag of potato chips, but we also all agree that just one potato chip is it really that bad, right? Like we struggle in our humanness to say where is the right line, and why does she get three potato chips and I can only have one, right? Like there's that disconnect, but it misses the bigger question of what are we valuing and where do we find health and wellness and how do we define it for ourselves or our cultures. It's interesting to me too. You got to tell me this because I guess I'm married to a lawyer, so my brain like thinks in legal risks, okay? And as an internal medicine doc, if you told me that I needed to take care of babies or pregnant moms, like the pregnant moms, I actually am an anomaly and I'm okay with that if it's a medical thing. But outside of that, that's not normal for internal medicine, right? And it's not normal for internal medicine to take care of babies. So, how did you get comfortable with that risk of doing the stuff that isn't what's in your quote unquote residency training?
Yeah, it's fascinating. That's why I did internal medicine, because I did not want to deal with OB. I wanted to deal with bees. Um, and through the osteopathic fellowship,
Mhm.
that gave me the ability to, from a scope of practice standpoint,
Got
gave me
it.
the ability to treat pregnant and pediatric patients from an osteopathic
Okay.
standpoint. But yeah, I had to go back to our, what it was, it eight, whatever that physical exam book was,
Harrison, yeah, all the things.
to remember how to do a pediatric exam, especially in my culture, because they're while I love them and I like, it's where my heart is to serve, like we have midwives in this area that aren't even midwives, that are delivering
Oh,
children and telling them they don't have to get the state screening. And if there was something wrong with the baby, I would know. And my mind wants to go,
right,
um, and so I need to have a good physical exam, because they come to me sometimes day one and day two and saying this baby's not latching. And I'm like, they've got cyanosis around their lips. Like we need to get them to the cardiologist,
right,
like,
right.
so yeah, I had to go
Agree.
back to the book for sure.
Yeah, I would imagine, I think even with my own kids, they'll be, I don't know, one of them will have a fever and a cough, and I'm like getting ready to take them to the pediatrician, and my husband's like, "Did you even listen to them? Like, you can diagnose if their lungs are working or not." I'm like, "Oh, I can listen to them. That's true, right?" And in fairness, it did help me once. I took my daughter when she was, I don't know, a year old. I listened to her and I was like, I really think she has pneumonia. And they wouldn't do a chest x-ray on her because she was 1 year old. And I was like, then do something because this child is not well, right? And when they listened to her, they're like, oh my gosh, maybe she does need a chest x-ray, right? And so to your point, the exam becomes very helpful in certain things. I am beginning to be increasingly uncomfortable with saying it's helpful for a wellness visit. I
Say
don't
that again.
I'm becoming increasingly uncomfortable saying that everybody needs an annual physical
Mm.
exam, that as a part of a wellness visit, that it's necessary, and I think that's probably because our culture is so lab heavy. We get labs and we rely on labs and whatnot, but, um, I find more problems when I do an exam that end up not being problems, like the heart murmur or the spot that looks a little weird, but it's not quite weird enough. I wonder if that doesn't cause more unnecessary care. And I'm curious because you, I bet, love your physical exam, right? So I'm just curious, push back on me, tell me where you disagree or what you think on that.
It's interesting. I have lots of opinions on this. I was lucky enough to do my internal medicine, well, my internship year with a program that had, I was the only white American in my class. And most of my colleagues were all foreign medical graduates, which worked out incredibly to my benefit, because when someone, for those of you guys listening, when a foreign medical grad or a foreign medical physician from another country wants to come practice in our country, they have to redo their residency. So all of my colleagues that were with me were already attendings or have been practicing in their respective country for 20 years.
A
And
lot of
in those
experience.
other countries, they're not as lab focused and diagnostic focused. They don't have access to all that stuff. And so I had the opportunity really to learn a really good physical exam. Like these guys could listen to a heart and grade a murmur, know exactly which one it was and grade it, which typically we need an echo for, right? Like we need an
Correct.
ultrasound of the heart to grade a murmur, which is, you guys know, a sound that the heart makes. And so I had that opportunity, but here's my other piece. I kind of agree with you with the wellness piece. We just had a couple of patients get sent down a major rabbit hole of did a CAT scan for something, found a lung nodule, the whole thing, and it wound up going away after 6 months of, all that stress and multiple doctors' offices. But here's the other piece that I've been grappling with is that the culture at large has got to decide whether, like kind of what you're saying, this is the thing that's been tickling my brain is, do we really need physicians? Because
Okay.
what the major medical systems are saying is, no, we don't. We have NPs and we have PAs and they're cheaper. They don't nearly have as much training as you, but we can fit them in and they can do a good enough job. But the reality is our physical exam, if we don't do a physical exam, then what we're saying to the world is that the physician-led physical exam is not that important. And in that case, anyone can really do our job.
They're interchangeable widgets.
Right. And that's what really kind of boggles my mind, right? But in the same sense, to your point, in our training, yes, I had the opportunity to have foreign medical grads and attendings in other countries teach me a physical exam. But already our training is showing that, you know, people aren't listening to people's hearts. They're like, do an echo,
Right.
right? Like we go do a test, go do a diagnostic. And so our physical exam, I think, is weaker than it was 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Especially if you know that if you don't do it, you're going to be seen as, or at least you think you're going to be seen as being malpractice inclined, that you're not doing the standard of care being the test, which is crazy, right? That the standard of care is not looking someone in the eye and listening to their story and deciding together, is this the best option? What are all of my options?
Right.
But in fairness to our colleagues, I couldn't do that when I had 3,000 patients. I was doing the best I could to stay
For
above
sure.
water, right? And so I think if we are going to say, yes, we value physicians, yes, we value primary care, then we have to stop asking people in those positions to do 10 or 15-minute visits, 20 if they're lucky. If they're in academics, maybe it's 20, right? But that's not realistic. And that's the patients, it's unfair to the patient too. So when I put on my patient hat and my doctor's seeing 3,000 patients and I'm trying to just get heard, you can't be heard in that kind of experience. And so I have a lot, I don't blame them, I blame the system,
Yeah.
but I don't see it changing either because I don't think physicians are leading the systems, and I don't think patients know that. I don't think most patients realize how little control physicians have of the system in general.
Agreed. But I also think as a consumer, and as we get away from, most people can't afford commercial insurance and we're getting
Right.
into all of these sort of high deductible plans, I think the consumer carries the power, right? Just
Yes.
like in any other market system. When I go to the urgent care and someone walks in with a stethoscope around their neck,
Right.
I deserve to know, are you a PA, are you an NP, or are you a physician?
Correct.
Right? I'm paying for this out of pocket.
Right.
I get to know who's treating me.
Yes.
Because the reality is currently you don't know, right?
Correct.
Everybody
Correct.
is calling themselves a doctor and everybody has a stethoscope around their name.
Right.
And right. So yeah, I mean, I think the consumer is who eventually is able to change that. But I agree, like how many times do we get told, I still get told this, oh, you get a kickback every time you order an EKG, you get a kickback every time you order an echo. I'm like, no,
No.
let's sit down. That's not how this works,
Right. It's not. Yeah. And it's unfortunate that that dialogue, actually, that monologue has become the dominant story, and there hasn't been a dialogue with the public about this. And it's tough that, whether it's the physical therapist or the nurse practitioner, their programs are making them earn doctorates in their degrees. And the consumer thinks that doctor equals doctor equals doctor. But we all know that a doctor of music is not the same as a doctor of art. They're different things. I probably just screwed up my analogy there, but go with me there. They are different expertise. And I would want a nurse on my wound any day of the week rather than a physician. Nurses do better wound care than anybody, but I don't necessarily want to find out that I'm seeing a surgeon when I should have seen a cardiologist. It goes that way too. It's not just nurses versus physicians. It's physicians compared to
Yeah.
physicians. I've thought over the years, I wonder what it would be like if everyone who goes into a medicine specialty, so cardiology or GI, we'll say, what would happen if they had to do primary care on all their patients? How could that change the story and have everybody be more invested? Now, no one's going to do that, right? Because that's not how our system is aligned and the incentives financially go. But if everybody had to have a stake in primary care, I think everyone would be more invested in caring about the outcomes, including the patients. If they had to have an investment in the counter argument that I've heard of that is, well, we used to have that. It was called pre-existing conditions, and that was their investment. I'm like, that's a little bit harsh, but
Mhm.
there has to be some place beyond where we're at and where we've been that can get us better.
Yeah, I agree. And I think again, consumer driven, right? All of these direct primary care docs popping up.
Mhm. Mhm.
There's a huge demand for it.
Yes.
And I think that as that grows and consumers see how much better care is,
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe things will begin to shift.
Right. Oh, there's so much there we could keep going on, but this is a great place to change and transition. So I'm curious. I do a lot of thinking about how do we use the predictors that we know from pregnancy or menopause and women's health specifically to identify women who are high risk for heart disease or stroke or any of the things that we know are long-term badness. In your work, it may not be that same population, but specifically around women, is there an area of women's health that you refuse to compromise on?
I think I see a lot of thyroid and I see a lot of in the integrative world, adrenal
Okay.
fatigue, which doesn't exist, right? It doesn't have an
I
ICD
wonder
ten.
what you were gonna say there. Okay.
But the reality is, and again, we are under this preconceived, oh, you're a mom, you're a working mom, you should be tired, right? I
Mm,
hear that all the time. And that is
yes.
such a lie,
Okay.
right? And so maybe not in the perimenopause space, but even in that, like we from medical training, we didn't learn how to take care of a thyroid very well.
Right.
And we completely ignored the adrenals. And
Mm,
so, in our high stress, sympathetic world where we're running from A to B and it's pick up the kids and drive them to practice and shove food in their mouth on the way and all the things that are in between, our adrenals are that gland that helps us manage our stress. And so anytime a mom, fatigue is probably the number one complaint I get from women.
mhm,
Um, and the reality is when we just check a TSH, it does no one any good,
mhm.
um, because that TSH was created. Here's the middle of the road, the mean value when they decided what was normal. And then they're like, let's just go 2 standard deviations. That should be about good, right?
Yeah.
With no reference values for women that are actually feeling good. So my thing is managing and women's thyroids to maximum potential and addressing the adrenals, helping them learn stress management techniques, boundaries, right? How do we set boundaries? Um, and how do we look for triggers? This is what our coaches do all the time. So we get a woman with adrenal fatigue, most likely they may or may not have thyroid disease along with that. How do you find out what your triggers are? And then how do you create guardrails around them so that you can bump up against your guardrail and that's fine, but you're not falling off the cliff? Right. So,
Mhm,
for instance, for me, my story is I could go through my whole history, but it's bad. It took me 10 years to regain my health. I had
uh,
adrenal fatigue stage 3, meaning my morning cortisol, which should be about 20 on these tests, was literally 3. Like, I don't know how I didn't end up in the hospital. I had 3 babies, well, I had 4 babies in 5 years, residency working 80, 90 hours a week because that was before they actually had requirements in.
mhm.
And I had Hashimoto's, but my family doc found it, never really told me. And then my TSH wasn't bad enough, so it really didn't put me on anything. 10 years later, I'm like, I'm like dead. Like how I don't even know how I survived. Only by the grace of God, I think. But
Yeah.
and I went to multiple natural providers, went to my family doc. No one could find it and no one could help. And I'm like, at some point, I'm like, you know what? Like, I've gone to school for 30 years. Like, I can figure this out. And so in that process of learning how to treat Hashimoto's, and I have autoimmune adrenal disease, which was why I wound up with adrenal fatigue stage 3, and a third autoimmune disease, I have vitiligo as well. But how do I look for triggers even to this day? So I've healed and I'm recovered and I feel better in my 40s than I did in my 30s. Maybe that's because my kids are self-sufficient and I can shower without them coming in.
Might have a small thing to do with it.
Maybe. But the reality is sleep is still a huge trigger for me. And so I know that I need to sleep at least 2 nights a week, 9 hours. And if I do that, I am good. But if that falls off the circuit for a few weeks, I start
Yeah,
feeling it. And then my patients they may get the worst part of me. And
right.
so that's a guardrail. So if I get to Friday night and I haven't slept 9 hours, I'm canceling my plans so that I can sleep 9 hours. So all that to
Yeah.
say, I think women need help with managing fatigue. And part of that is hormones, but a huge piece of what I do in that before perimenopause, childbearing, rearing age is
Yes.
adrenals and thyroid.
Mhm. So good. And I love how you said it does not exist and yet I had it, right? Like you can hold both of those tensions equally
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't exist only because the AMA hasn't made a code for it.
Right.
And yet people are dealing with symptoms. Um, I think back to when I first started hearing about leaky gut syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, what is this quackery, right? Like, this is just your gut's not leaking. But then I started watching the displays of what various practitioners would be showing. And then lo and behold, we get SIBO within a few years, right? It's like, it's all the same thing. We're just calling it different things. And all comes down to what committee met and put a code on it. So I like that you owned that you had it and it doesn't exist. I thought it was the best, beautiful tension I've heard all day. So good job. Um, are there areas in women's health or maybe in holistic health, integrative health that we haven't covered that you think it's important we should at least acknowledge for our listeners?
Food.
Okay.
I think that, for me, again, I grew up in the suburbs drinking Kool-Aid and like eating Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
So, and part of my story is that I wanted to learn where real food came from. And
Hmm.
so we started homesteading when we moved to Lancaster County, which was probably about 15 years ago. And
Okay.
so we have chickens, we have an orchard, we have all kinds of berries and a big garden. And we can and preserve food. At the office, we have 40 chickens and we have 4 sheep.
Wow.
And
I don't
so
think I've ever seen a medical clinic with animals at it except a veterinarian's office, right?
I know. Well,
That's
my
cool.
I would part of what my dream would be is to create, and we're slowly but surely getting there, is to create a homestead for health because my homestead
Hmm.
taught me how to regain my health. And again, I think that we have taken so much power away from people in that you can only get food from the food store. And
Hmm.
you can only buy honey mustard because you can't make it at home, right?
Hmm.
And so we have been in a position that we don't necessarily know where real food comes from. And
Hmm.
and I think you could agree with this, food is the foundation to health, right? And
Absolutely.
every piece of food that we choose to put in our mouth either harms our health or
Mhm.
benefits our health. And there's really no in between. And
Right.
so my like passion is to teach people just about real food and that it doesn't have to be hard. I'm a suburban kid that had no idea what I was doing. Um, and we grow a lot of our own food. But I will say now that teenage children are really good homestead workers from the age about 7 to 14. After 14, they quit. They lose
Uh,
their brain cells.
you have a revolt on your hands.
Yes. So that's what we want to do. Like our office is it's an old bed and breakfast. And so
Oh, cool.
our goal is to make the kitchen into a teaching kitchen where we can bring people in. How
Yes.
do I grow broccoli? How do I actually cut broccoli? How do I cook
Right?
broccoli? How do I save broccoli? Right?
Yes.
Like all of those things I think are we we've lost. How many people don't know how to cook?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because
Yeah,
our
if you
mom,
asked me to can something, I'd laugh at you. Like, it's just,
right?
but
Well,
100 years ago, we would have all known that.
Yes. Well, our moms, like, well, my generation, I'm 49, but my mom was like that first generation of moms to go back to work,
Hmm.
right? And so we didn't learn how to cook anything. Like,
Right.
we ate SpaghettiOs, right?
Right. Yes. Thank God for the microwave.
That's
Because
right.
if I had to put it on the stove, it would be bad.
Yeah. So my huge passion has been to teach my kids, even though they don't do it now, they eat
Yep.
Wawa, they eat like crud,
Yep.
the foundations of knowing how to grow real food, because I think
Yes.
it's foundational to health and
Oh,
healing.
that's so good. So good. Do you think there are areas of nutrition, and I guess I'm thinking more along just the general nutrition, we'll call them guidelines that seem to change every few years. Do you think, though, there's advice that women are getting that's harmful for them through those guidelines?
Meaning like the nutritional like little heart that just came out.
Yeah, maybe starting there.
I mean, I would say that I don't know that there's anything that I could say that is harmful from a diet standpoint, because everybody, I think there is no one diet for every
Mhm.
person. But
Right.
I think the, um, I just got back from a conference and they reposted um, a quote that I'm going to butcher. Anyway, we'll forget about it. Forget about that. I think the moral of the story is eat more plants. Bottom
Yes.
line, right? Like half of your plate should be plants,
Right.
and all the other things I think are negotiable. You know.
No, that's fair. I think the hill I'm learning to die on when it comes to nutrition is this idea that everyone should eat a balanced diet. And my rejection of that is it doesn't work to eat a balanced diet if you're not starting in a balanced place.
Mm,
Right. And if you have flagrantly uncontrolled diabetes, I don't care if you're eating whole grains or not. You don't need to be eating grains at all until you fix the diabetes.
mhm.
And that's kind of the evolution of my thinking in that. So I was just curious when you said food, if there was an area that you really were like, this is it. This is my steak. So, oh my gosh, I could pick your brain for hours. Thank you. Thank you for dedicating some time today to speak with us. And before I let you escape, where can our listeners find you if they want more information about what you do?
Well, I just have a website. I do have a YouTube channel. I haven't posted anything in probably about 5 years. Um, so yeah, I'm on Instagram, Dr. B at LCYH, but I'm not really big on social media.
That's okay. But you got a
Um,
website.
yeah, I have a little
Okay.
website.
Hey, that works. It's getting the information out there. And who knows, maybe someone in your neck of the woods is listening and will want to connect. And so I want to make sure they have that opportunity. And then any last words that you want to leave our audience with?
No, I think maybe just remember that you are valuable, that your story is worth someone listening to. And then if I could just empower you to be in charge of your health, right? No one else is going to care more about your health than you. And just find the right team that's going to come alongside you, that's going to believe in you, that's going to instill hope, because your body does have the ability to heal. We just need to give it the right things, and it will do that for you.
Oh, that's beautiful. All right, listeners, if something in today's conversation resonated, it's because you are not alone and you're not imagining it. You can find support and resources, next steps in the show notes. If this episode helped you feel seen, share it with another woman who needs to hear it. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Bye.